3 spine-chilling true countryside tales revealed, unexplained horrors and sinister secrets await in the quiet town of Maple Hollow. Every whisper of the wind held secrets that clawed at the edge of sanity. Sarah, a 32-year-old single mother and relentless nurse, worked endless shifts and returned home to a county cottage that should have been homey, yet something darker lurked in the shadows. After a long day, she would sway her children to sleep with the soothing hum of crickets, but as dusk deepened, the serenity frayed. Night unveiled a world of unease. Every creak of the house plunged her heart into a cold pit of dread. Who or what was watching just beyond the flickering porch light? Late one night, the air thickened with an ominous presence. The soft rustle outside her window felt too deliberate. Her heart raced as she glanced out, the dim moonlight casting eerie silhouettes against the barn at the edge of their property. Stories whispered by townsfolk echoed in her mind, tales of things left unsaid, the missing faces, the blood-curdling horrors entwined in Maple Hollow's roots. Shadows shifted, she could almost hear them breathe. "Mommy, our friend was here again." Her children's innocent voices cut through her reverie, racing the chill down her spine. A friend that only appeared at twilight, woven from the same fabric of tales that haunted her. Was it a guardian, or something far more sinister? Her thoughts churned. It was more than mere imagination. The tension built, fear tied knots in her stomach. Determined to shield her children, Sarah dove into Maple Hollow's chilling history, unearthing disappearances cloaked by the town's quaint charm. Every festival, every cozy face masked an uncomfortable truth. The former sheriff's iron rule bred fear, creating a web of complicity among the townspeople. As fright enveloped her, Sarah's desperation grew. Each revelation increased her isolation. Friendly smiles became hollow masks, concealing dread. Before she could breathe, night descended again. The worst terror struck when Sarah's world shattered. Her children had vanished. The void left behind sank deeper than any darkness she could have anticipated. One moment they were there, the next, echoes of their laughter were swallowed by the night. Panic surged, igniting her primal instincts. "Johnny! Lily! Where are you?" The woods loomed ominously, ancient trees like giant specters clutching the shadows. The night grew thicker, the rustle in the underbrush becoming a cruel taunt, beckoning her to follow. Heart pounding, she plunged into the depths of the dark, branches clawing at her skin. Then she saw it, a dark figure outlined against the gnarled trees, freezing her blood in an instant. The whispers surrounded her now, promises of threats concealed beneath every tale of bravery. The town's history echoed in her mind, an agonizing question strumming her heart. Could these once friendly faces be enmeshed in a nightmare far worse than her imagination? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's breath hitched, the cold weight of her fear tightening around her throat. She inched closer, the darkness around her flickering with possible horrors, every shadow shifting in her peripheral vision. Every second felt stolen, time dragging as she approached the silhouette, desperately trying to discern friend from foe. The price for survival in Maple Hollow was becoming an unspeakable terror. Would she uncover the lurking evil before it consumed her family, or would she too become just another tale lost to the night? The figure loomed closer, its outline sharp against the fleeting moonlight. Her heart pounded, a frantic tattoo in her chest, urging her to retreat. But fear for her children clenched her fists and drove her forward. With each cautious step, her thoughts spiraled into an abyss of dread. Who was it? What did they want? The night was terrible in its silence, except for the heartbeat of the woods, the rustling leaves whispering secrets of their own. "Johnny! Lily!" She called again, voice shaky, echoing back at her like a taunt. The shadows seemed to deepen, folding in on themselves, as if swallowing any light she brought. Then, the figure moved. A shiver raced down her spine as it shifted, revealing hints of a face, obscured but curiously familiar. "Mommy," a low voice drifted through the chill, a plea that didn't belong to her children. "Help me," a pitiful wail clawed at the edges of her sanity. Sarah's pulse raced. That voice, a chilling echo from her past, had she heard it before? Each word sent icicles of queasy recognition slicing through her. She couldn't be certain whether it was a memory or a wicked twist of the night. "Who are you?" she whispered, half desperate, half fearful of the answer. The figure stepped closer, shrouded in mystery, and the veil of darkness began to recede slightly, unveiling a haunting visage. "Let them go," it rasped, the voice now sharp as glass. "They belong to the hollow." Panic surged like wildfire through her veins. "What do you mean? Where are my kids?" Her breath quickened, and suddenly the familiar woods morphed into a labyrinth of horror. What had they encountered? What price had they paid? Her mind raced, each question twisting into despair. The figure lunged forward, hands outstretched as if grasping at her, but the night held her back, greedily consuming both the distance and her hope. "Mommy!" Came another echo, this time unmistakably in her children's voices. Faint but clear, they mingled with the rustling leaves, captivating her spirit, igniting that flickering flame of strength within. "Stay where you are!" she screamed, adrenaline surging. Behind her, the underbrush cracked ominously, a malevolent presence hungering for her fear. "I'm coming!" With a burst of will, she twisted away, plunging deeper into the woods, drawing closer to the cries. Adrenaline propelled her forward as she fought through the branches clutching at her clothes. The shadows around her morphed like ghouls, waiting for her to falter. Every stunted breath became an echo of guilt, of failure mixed with fierce determination. The calls for help reverberated, bouncing off the trees like echoes in a nightmare. She pushed harder until she burst into a clearing. The moon's light spilled over the ground, illuminating the scene before her, a sight that would forever etch itself in her mind. There, bound in a circle of flickering light, were Johnny and Lily, their eyes wide with terror, too terrified to scream. Surrounding them, dozens of shadowy figures swayed, whispering in a language as ancient as the woods, chanting a rhythm that throbbed like a heartbeat. A chilling realization struck her: these figures weren't merely shadow, they were specters of the lost, fellow townsfolk perhaps, caught beneath the weight of Maple Hollow's dark history. Were they guardians or captors? And was she too to become part of their terrible legacy? "Let them go!" Sarah shouted, stepping forward. But her voice fell shallow against the oppressive air. The figures halted their chants, all eyes sunken, hungry, turning toward her in haunting unison. What had she unleashed in her pursuit for truth? As the specters closed in, eyes glimmering with hungry light, she felt the darkness tightening around her. In Maple Hollow, whispers never die, they simply wait for the right moment to feast. What had they awakened, and what would it demand of her? As the echo of her desperate plea lingered in the heavy air, Sarah felt the heat of their staring eyes bore into her. They were not just hollow, they were hungry, consumed by a longing she couldn't decipher, with a malevolence that gnawed at her insides. "Mommy! Help us!" Johnny's voice broke through the oppressive silence, a sharp knife cutting her heart. The urgency in his tone shattered the spell momentarily, propelling her forward, but an invisible barrier held her back, rippling with ancient magic that warned against crossing. The fear in her children's eyes screamed louder than the whispers of the figures around them. "Get away from them!" Her voice shrieked like a banshee, a mixture of rage and fear fueling her courage. But the specters only drew closer, the faint moonlight barely illuminating their features, enhancing their grotesque smiles. Their mouths curled in wicked anticipation. One figure detached from the group, stepping forward. The air turned colder as it moved, almost floating, a dark silhouette cloaked in memories. It raised a hand toward her, transparent but resolutely present. The hand beckoned as if it wished to pull her into its embrace of shadow. "Join us, Sarah, join us beneath the hollow." The familiar chill of recognition gripped her like frostbite. This voice too. It came from somewhere deep and forgotten, stirring something buried within her. You. She gasped. You were once touched by the hollow, it interrupted, its voice laced with an unsettling blend of affection and threat. And soon you shall be again. They are ours to keep, just as you were long ago. Your dark legacy ends tonight. Sarah screamed, summoning every ounce of defiance left inside her. The specters exchanged glances, murmurs bubbling like dark waters, each sound taunting her resolve. Do you think you can sever the bond? They asked in unison, weaving their voices into a single, chilling melody that seemed to vibrate off the trees. They are part of us now. Made from the roots of this cursed land. The ground beneath her feet trembled slightly, reacting to their dark chant. A warning? Or a promise of something even more sinister? Sarah's heart ached. Johnny. Lily. She shouted again, but her voice faltered. The shadows consumed the clearing slowly, inching closer, warping her connection to them. Suddenly, from the depths of the whitish glow surrounding her children, Johnny's voice cut through the haze, trembling but strong. Mommy. We're not afraid. We love you. Love. The word boiled inside her, mingling with rage and panic. She fought against the paralysis their power instilled in her. I will find you. She shouted fiercely, all thoughts of retreat gone. I swear, I will never stop searching. No. The specter wailed, the sound shredding the air like a banshee's cry. You cannot save them. The hollow chooses. With that, a pulse of energy surged through the shadowy crowd. They lunged a wave of darkness, teeth bared and eyes wild. Shadows twisted into claws and mouths as they crashed forward like a raging tide aimed directly at her. In that moment, Sarah felt a rush of memories flood into her, flaring to life with the weight of every terrible choice she'd ever made. The whispers of Maple Hollow weren't just haunting, they were binding, wrapping around her limbs, dragging her closer to the very air she fought to breathe, and then, like an explosion, a mightier force and ancient energy throbbed within her, clamoring for release. Get away from us. She screamed, pushing against the tide. But would it be enough to save her children? What kind of darkness awaited her return journey into the hollow? When the clock struck midnight, would her children remain or would they be lost to the whispers forever? The darkness crashed against her, a relentless tide tugging at her limbs. Sarah felt the chill seep into her bones, the tangible weight of despair. The specter's whispers clawed at her mind, each syllable weaving a grotesque tapestry of her past, raking her over the coals of every decision she had ever made. They spoke of forgotten truths and twisted promises. Join us, Sarah, they sang, their melodic voices crackling with malice. She resisted, teeth gritted, as a smoldering ember of hope flickered within her. Your time has come. You belong to us now. No. She roared, pushing against the crushing darkness that pulsed with every breath she took. The flickering light around her children dimmed, shadows stretching unnaturally, devouring warmth and laughter. She had to reach them. She had to fight the terror clawing at her throat. In a surge of adrenaline, she lunged forward, the barrier rippling against her like gelatin. The air hummed with energy, filling her with a sudden ferocity. She could feel her children's fear, a vital thread binding them to her. Stay close. She yelled, her voice strengthening. I'm coming for you. The specters recoiled as if physically struck by her will. The air thickened with tension, their shadows writhing. You cannot defy the hollow. They hissed, the chorus of voices vibrating with rage. Yet for the first time, the tide seemed to hesitate, then, without warning, one of the figures lunged. A gnarled hand shot out, fingernails like jagged glass, aiming for her throat. With a swift motion, Sarah swerved, feeling the specter's cold breath whisper past her ear. The panic boiled inside her but transformed into an unyielding determination. Stay away from me. She screamed, gathering the remnants of her strength. She thrust her hands forward, her heart thundering with desperate love. An eruption of light poured forth, a blinding flash that shattered the shadows, and the specters recoiled, their hollow faces twisted in confusion, and then, silence, an eerie interlude. The shadows faltered for an instant, revealing her children, shrouded in a ghostly glow. Their forms flickered like firelight, wavering between existence and oblivion, but they were real, tangible. "Mommy!" Lily cried, reaching out, her small hand trembling. "Help us!" With every fiber of her being, Sarah steadied herself, pushing another wave of light into the darkness, a radiant scream that echoed in the dead air. "No! You will not take my children. I will break this curse." The air crackled with ancient energy, stirring the winds that swayed the trees. The specters shrieked, their forms flicking like flames caught in wind. They writhed in agony, energy surging within Sarah as she reclaimed her memories from the darkness. She was not just part of this place, she had power here, a bond strong enough to tear through the veils of the hollow. "Remember us, remember your choice." The figure from before emerged again, a shadow of her past. The words dripped like honey, thick with poison. "You can never escape the roots of Maple Hollow. You belong to us. You were born unto this darkness." Struggling to shake off the whispers, Sarah felt her grip tighten around the tender thread of her children's love, her heart pulsing with the rhythm of rebellion. "We're stronger than any legacy. I will fight until my last breath." And with that, she charged forward, the air electrified, ready to shatter the darkness around her children. But what lay beyond this confrontation? Was the hollow truly defeated, or did it harbor a deeper, darker secret waiting to be unleashed? The ground trembled beneath her feet, a foreboding promise of tumult ahead. Would they find their way back or plunge deeper into the abyss? The ground beneath Sarah began to shudder violently, as if some ancient beast were awakening beneath her. Her heart raced with terror, but she pressed forward, her children's anguished faces propelling her through the gathering blackness. The specters shrieked, a chorus of despair that sliced through the air like broken glass. "Mommy!" Lily's voice trembled, echoing in a void so large it swallowed her whisper before it could reach Sarah. Desperation surged as Sarah sprinted toward the flickering forms, each breath an effort against the crushing despair. The shadows danced, twisting and turning, whispering secrets of her own failures. "You can't escape your fate," they hissed. "You belong to us. Not today." Sarah gritted her teeth, swatting away the cold fingers that grazed her skin. The air crackled again, a different energy pulsing, stronger. It called to her a need to fight, to reclaim everything that had been stolen. Suddenly, the space shifted. The shadows coalesced, weaving together like threads stitching a dark tapestry. Shapes formed in the depths, looming figures casting ominous shadows over her. The ghastly faces of the lost memories of those she had loved but could not save. "Sarah," they pleaded, "don't leave us." Panic gripped her. She could feel their sorrow clawing at her mind, but she forced herself to focus. Lily and David needed her. She couldn't fall apart now. With renewed determination, Sarah summoned another wave of light. This time, it surged through her like molten gold, scattering the dark figures as if they were nothing more than dust before the sun. The specters wailed, an ear-piercing sound that caused Sarah to clutch her ears, stumbling as she advanced. The light pushed forth with a fierce intensity, illuminating the terrible truth: the hollow was alive, and it craved their fear, their despair. Behind her, the shadows began to blend together, forming a swirling vortex that threatened to consume everything in its path. Her children stood just ahead, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy! Help us!" Their cries echoed, harmonizing with the hollow shrieks of the specters. "Hold on!" she shouted, plunging through the brightening haze. The grip of despair tightened around her heart. She could feel the specters regrouping, their malicious intent stronger than ever. "Join us, Sarah. Forever." The spectral figure from before emerged again, its features obscured in darkness, yet its voice dripped with familiarity. It felt like a part of her, an inseparable bond forged in her deepest fears. "You are one of us." "Shut up!" Sarah screamed, the anguish driving her with unerring force. The tether to her past felt heavy, almost tangible, yet she fought to sever it. Light exploded from her in a raw outburst, sending tendrils of warmth through the cold air. "Stay close, kids!" she cried, heart pounding as she perceived a path through the swirling chaos. But the shadows converged, a monstrous wave tumbling toward her. The taste of blood mingled with fear in her mouth as she gasped for breath, ready to face whatever horror lay ahead. Then, the ground split beneath her feet, a crack slicing through the earth like a jagged wound. Sarah teetered on the edge, panic surging. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, her voice swallowed by the dark chasm that yawned open. In that moment, everything froze. The specters hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their hollow gazes. Did they not know how to swallow the light? Did they fear her defiance? Before she could respond, an icy wind howled, dragging her back toward the gaping maw of darkness. The laugh of the specter resonated in her ears, taunting, promising unending darkness if she failed. "Don't let go." A haunting whisper seeped from the darkness, more menacing than the others. "You will never escape the darkness that you are." As the shadows closed in, Sarah's resolve faltered for just a second. But then, a fierce light flickered in her chest, brighter than fear. Her vision blurred, her grip on her children tightened. "Together!" she screamed, defiance coursing through her veins as the darkness crested around them. But would this defiance be enough? Was there truly a way out of the hollow, or was she simply delaying the inevitable? The abyss loomed, pulling everything into its depths, and as fear and courage collided, Sarah realized, this was only the beginning. The hollow had more secrets waiting. What lay in the depths that could shatter their fragile hope? The abyss swallowed the light, a ravenous hunger that threatened to consume everything. Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath her, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. She could hear the faint cries of Lily and David, struggling to hold on, mere echoes of laughter drowned out by the memory of darkness. "Hold on." Sarah gritted her teeth, her nails clawing into the earth as if it could somehow anchor her back to reality. The shadows writhed like living serpents, reaching for her, teasing her with promises of power and release from suffering. "You only need to let go. Join us no." she shouted, fists raised in defiance, the sound reverberating through the hollow space. She focused on her children, their wide eyes reflecting fear but also trust. "You don't get to take them." With every ounce of willpower, Sarah funneled warmth through her limbs, an ember igniting from her innermost core. The shadows recoiled slightly, startled by her strength. But their confusion was short-lived, the vortex intensified, a monstrous roar swallowing her heartbeat as if it were alive, a predatory beast demanding its due. "Sarah!" David's voice cracked, panic rising like an urgent tide. "We're falling." The ground beneath her splintered further, and she felt a weightlessness, a free fall into the unknown. But just as quickly, the specters converged, snatching at her limbs, their grasp icy and relentless. She barely felt them probing, gnawing at her resolve. She was about to lose everything. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried, tears sparkling like crystal droplets in the fading light. A surge of a mother's love broke through the fog of despair. Sarah's resolve hardened like steel. "I want to let you take them." In that moment, Sarah pulled from the very marrow of her being, channeling the love, the need for her children above all else. Light exploded from her, blinding and fierce, as if the sun had fractured in the hollow. It cast the murky shadows back, illuminating the nightmare realm that had held her captive. The screams of the specters morphed into gnarled howls, shrieking in rage as they recoiled from the brightness. "No! You belong to us. Not anymore." The words burned on her tongue, giving her strength. As the light enveloped them, the world shifted again. Grounded once more, Sarah realized they stood on a precipice lined with nightmarish runes, glowing ominously. Ahead, a path emerged, a narrow bridge of stone pierced with mists, and at its end, a flicker of an exit. With shaky breaths and pounding hearts, she urged her children forward. The shadows loomed, surging toward them like a tidal wave of despair. Every step felt heavy, each echo of their footsteps chased by the whispers of the damned. You cannot escape. Faster. Stay with me. Sarah shouted, the desperation fueling her pulse, but as they stepped onto the bridge, the weight of their fears gravitated around them, warping the air. They teetered on the edge between light and darkness. Suddenly, a clawing dread washed over Sarah. What if this was all a trap? What if the exit was just another trick of the hollow, a darker snare woven with splendor? Mommy. David's eyes brimmed with tears. Don't let go. I want tea. I promise. Her voice trembled, a shaky frailty beneath her bravado, yet, the shadows stirred, and she sensed something deeper, the heartbeat of the hollow itself, throbbing around them. It was watching, waiting for them to falter. The echoes of desperation began to form again, creeping back into her mind. Join us forever. What if the only way to escape was to confront the truth hidden within herself? A truth she had held back all these years? As the bridge began to sway and crack, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They were running out of time, and the dark whispers grew louder, nearly drowning out her thoughts entirely. Can we still escape? She wondered, heart hammering as the chilling laughter of the specters faded beneath their feet. But that question lingered, gnawing away at her as the bridge splintered, bending toward an unknown fate. The bridge moaned beneath them, its stones shifting like a restless creature. Each crack produced a sound like thunder, echoing ominously in the hollow's void. Sarah's heart raced, dread seeping into every pore. She pulled her children closer, desperate to shield them against the encroaching darkness. Keep moving, she urged, but her voice trembled, betraying the panic swirling beneath her resolve. The flicker of light at the end seemed to pulse, drawing them closer but also teasing them, a mirage flickering just beyond reach. With every step, the shadows slithered, whispering her name in a chorus of chilling familiarity, Sarah, Sarah. Each whisper was a dagger to her mind, a reminder of old wounds she'd thought healed. Memories of failures, of abandonment, of promises broken soared like phantoms at the edges of her consciousness. Mommy. It's too dark. David's voice broke through her musings, his small hand trembling in hers. We're almost there, my love. She couldn't let fear seep into her words. But doubt oozed, threatening to wrap around her heart like the shadows around her legs. Suddenly, the ground trembled harder. The runes beneath them glowed with malevolence, pulsing like a heartbeat, and with it came an overwhelming sense of being watched. Fear dripped from her thoughts like sweat down her back, and she began to feel the weight of the hollow's gaze. What's at the end? Lily whispered, her wide eyes reflecting both innocence and the faintest glimmer of bravery. I don't know, Sarah admitted, a tremor lacing her voice. Maybe it's freedom? Lily pressed, determination blanketing her fear. Or maybe it's a trap, David chimed in, glancing back at the undulating darkness, his little face contorted in worry. Both. Sarah replied sharply. That's why we have to keep going. We can't look back. She didn't tell them how the last time she looked back, she lost everything. The shadows writhed and twisted, wailing furiously, and suddenly lunged at them, sending cold tendrils snaking around Sarah's ankles. She gasped, struggling against their icy grip. Let go. Get off. She screamed, fighting the suffocating despair that threatened to engulf her. Mommy. Lily screamed, her small body trembling against the force. With panic roaring in her chest, Sarah heaved and twisted, yanking her legs free. The shadow retaliated, wrapping around her arms, its touch chilling. Join us, Sarah. It will be so easy, just let go, it whispered, the voice twisting into something disturbingly familiar. Stop it! Sarah shouted defiantly, trying to shake the voice away, but it lingered, insinuating itself into her thoughts. Her memories flickered, revealing her past failures, the mistakes she had made, the people she had lost. Look at what you've done, Sarah, it taunted. Is this the mother your children need? No. She shouted, I am trying my best. The bridge quaked again, teetering dangerously. In a moment of clarity, she understood the truth. This wasn't just about escaping the hollow, it was about confronting her deepest fears. By submitting to its whispers, she risked becoming a shadow herself. With renewed determination surging through her veins, she mustered every ounce of strength, pulling the love for her children to the surface. We're leaving this place, she declared, voice strong, but as she surged forward, the shadows recoiled, furious, hurling themselves against the light she emitted. Each spectral face twisted in agony. Just ahead of them, the exit flickered, a beckoning shimmer, but Sarah knew now it wouldn't be so simple. It's just a facade, she feared, as the darkness howled around her. Was that even freedom waiting for them, or another prison cloaked in brightness? The air seemed to thicken as they drew closer, the shadows swirling more violently, their screams rising to a deafening crescendo. With one last push, Sarah urged her children onward. What lay at the end would test their very souls. And then, just as they reached the exit, the bridge cracked deeply, splintering their foundation. Mommy! David screamed, terror in his voice as the ground began to collapse beneath them. Time froze. Was it too late to turn back? Would they get swallowed by the darkness after all? Sarah's grip tightened, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears, and she knew they had to make a choice: stay and risk losing everything, or take the leap into the unknown. What awaited beyond that flickering light? Would it be salvation, or the ultimate betrayal? The world tilted as the ground beneath them trembled, sending vibrations up Sarah's legs. In that moment, the horizon shifted, and the shimmering exit seemed to warp, bending like a funhouse mirror. The flickering light became a dark pulse, dimming as the shadows screamed louder, drowning out all rational thought. Run! Sarah shouted, her voice a desperate command slicing through the cacophony. She pulled her children with all her strength, driven by a raw instinct for survival. David stumbled, fear painting his face, but she had no choice. There was no room for hesitation. Each step felt like they were wading through treacle, the shadows clawing at their feet and rising up past Sarah's waist. The air grew thick with despair as ancient voices intertwined with the chilling wails, blasting through her mind. You will fail, you will lose them. The words echoed around her, paralyzing and accusing. No. I want to let you take them. Sarah screamed, her breath shallow, the sounds vibrating through the clamor of the hollow. Lily stood frozen, her little hands balling into fists, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mommy! I can't, Lily, come on. Sarah gasped, pulling her child towards the flickering exit. The darkness seemed alive, snapping and hissing, trying to weave them back into its endless embrace. But she wouldn't let it. Not today, her heart thundered, a war drum urging her on as the children stumbled behind her. Each stride a defiance against the insistent whispers that screamed of her past. You don't deserve to be a mother. Look at what you've done. But then a crack. A chasm opened, swallowing the very stones of the bridge, jagged teeth ready to tear them apart. The shimmering light flickered again, and for a sickening heartbeat, Sarah thought she saw a figure behind it. A silhouette that looked hauntingly familiar. David! Lily! She cried out, realizing that the edge was upon them. The unseen force urged her to give in, to accept the darkness and retreat from her failures. Join us, Sarah, stay with us. Rage ignited within her, flaring brighter than her tainted memories. No! I'm not afraid. She screamed at the shadows, her voice rising over their chaos. With a final force, she tensed, her muscles coiling like a tense spring. We're getting out of here. And then they launched forward, Sarah using everything she had, her panic transforming into pure determination. With one last pulse of energy, they leapt toward the light, the ground at their feet crumbling away, the darkness reaching for them like greased fingers. Time stretched painfully as they flew through the air, bodies suspended in a moment that felt eternal. Sarah held her breath, aware of nothing but the murmurs of her children beside her, and the terrible shadows spiraling in pursuit. Suddenly, they tumbled into the light and there was silence. Just like that, they landed. Breathless, hearts pounding, they rolled on soft grass instead of the ruinous stone. They were outside the hollow. But when Sarah opened her eyes, the warmth of the sun didn't flood her with relief. It was cool, almost chilling. The colors around them were muted, gray and lifeless, as if drained of joy. "Mommy, I don't feel right," David whispered, his voice trembling as he looked around at the desolation. Where are we?" Lily's eyes darted, searching for something familiar in the eerily quiet landscape. "Just hold on," kid Sarah's own heart sank as she took in their surroundings. The stillness felt wrong, too quiet. No signs of life, no sounds of birds or rustling leaves. Just three worn figures, unsettled and lost. As she scanned the horizon, a shadow flickered at the edge of her vision. She turned, just in time to see the silhouettes of the figures they had left behind in the hollow, standing on the bridge, indistinct and twisted. They were waiting. "Mommy, please!" David cried, clutching her leg, his fear palpable, and a creeping terror began to gnaw at her heart. Not only were they free from the hollow's grip, but what even lay beyond? What kind of curse had followed them here? Would the shadows always be waiting? The whispering had just begun. The air hung heavy with an indescribable weight, a pressure that made it hard to breathe. Sarah's heart raced as she turned to face Lily, whose wide eyes mirrored her own dread. David pressed closer, each shudder of his small frame sending shockwaves through her. They were outside the hollow, yet everything felt wrong. "Stay close to me," Sarah whispered, glancing around. The desolate landscape bled into the horizon, a tangle of gray trees and lifeless fields. No matter how hard she strained her ears, not even the faintest rustle of wind reached them. A dead silence, potent and suffocating, surrounded them. "Where are those people, Mommy?" Lily's voice quivered. "They're gone, honey. We're safe now." But even as she said it, doubt coiled into her mind. The figures from the hollow loomed behind her thoughts, gnawing at her sanity. She scanned the stillness. What could possibly be lurking just outside her vision? The shadows were not done with them. Suddenly, a low hum stirred from the depths of the ground, vibrating violently and shaking her bones. Sarah stumbled, trying to keep her children steady. What was that? David's voice broke through the haze, each word a plea. "I don't know." Sarah shouted back, her menacing gaze darting around. The hum morphed into a clamor, a chorus of mournful howls echoing through the air, crackling like static electricity. Shadows elongated bizarrely, twisting and squirming along the ground, creating an unholy dance in the fading light. A chill ran through her as a twisted silhouette emerged from the edge of her vision, tall and monstrous. It flickered like a dying flame. "Run!" she screamed, her voice barely carrying over the wailing shadows. They sprinted across the desolate expanse, the ground shifting beneath them, as if the earth itself was alive and trying to swallow them whole. David stumbled, falling to his knees. "I can't." His breath came in gasps, anguish lacing his words. "Get up, David. We have to go," Sarah urged, desperation clawing at her throat. She glanced back to see the shapes closing in on them, their faces contorted, mouths gaping wide as if ready to devour the very essence of hope. Lily, small but fierce, reached down to pull David up. "Come on," she urged, as if her spirit alone could lift his weight. The three of them pressed onward, hearts pounding, minds racing against the relentless pursuit of the shadows. Every thrum of fear coursing through Sarah's veins urged her to push despite the heavy fog in her mind, the memories of the hollow crashing into her thoughts like waves against a shore, but then, ahead, a flicker of color caught her eye, a vibrant green in a world void of life. "Look!" Sarah gasped, pointing toward a patch of vibrant grass. "Mommy, can we stop there?" Lily pleaded, hope shining in her tear-streaked eyes. "We can't stop," Sarah insisted, forcing her body to move. Yet, just as they reached the grass, the air around them pulsated with a new wail, more anguished and furious than before. The shadows swarmed around them, cold and whispering. "You cannot escape the call of the hollow, you belong to us," they hissed, the voices overlapping, reverberating through Sarah's skull. "Hold on to each other," she yelled, gripping her children tightly, but even as hope sparked, dread crept into her soul. The patch of grass was alive, pulsating like a heartbeat underfoot. As they stood, a fog thickened around them, swallowing everything in sight, and then, something broke through the mist, an ominous, shimmering figure that reflected both light and shadow. It loomed large, drawing closer, reminding Sarah of what she had thought she had left behind. "Mommy, what is that?" David whispered, eyes wide in terror. A single, chilling laugh echoed in the air, wrapping around them like a shroud. "You think freedom waits outside the hollow?" Sarah's stomach dropped, realization hitting her like a punch. What did we bring with us?" The figure stepped forward, its swirling darkness contrasting sharply against the sickly green around them. It extended an arm, fingers elongated and claw-like. A horrific truth dawned. This wasn't over. As the shadows closed in, Sarah's grip tightened around her children. Fear clutching at their throats, they stood on the precipice of a terrifying revelation. What had followed them into the world outside the hollow? And what price would they have to pay for their escape? The piercing quiet shattered as the eerie figure advanced, its silhouette etched against the sickly green grass. A chill washed over Sarah, a wave that carried the weight of dread and despair. "Stay behind me," she shouted, rallying her courage as she tightened her grip on Lily and David. But in that moment of defiance, another wave of shadows surged forward, a horde of lost souls grasping for connection that felt frighteningly familiar. The laughter echoed like a familiar lullaby gone wrong, drawing memories from the depths of her soul. "You brought us with you," the figure hissed, its voice a haunting symphony woven with sorrow. "The hollow never truly lets go. You must pay for the freedom you've stolen." Panic surged anew within Sarah. They had escaped the confines of the hollow, yet the darkness now clung to them like a second skin. She could feel its insatiable hunger, fangs bared, as it beckoned from the shadows. "No!" she cried out defiantly, propelled by an indomitable will. "You will not take my children." Each pulse of the shadow entity sent tremors through her bones, urging her to bow to the weight of fear. But behind the flicker of uncertainty lay a fierce resolve that ignited within Sarah's heart. "You are afraid of the light," she whispered, more to herself than to the creature. "You thrive on our terror, our despair. You are nothing without the darkness." With each assertion, she felt a light surge within, a warm glow that surged through the chill, the remnants of her love for her children. "We will not be your sacrifices." "Mommy?" David quivered, his small hand trembling in hers, his confusion mingling with terror. "What's happening? Just hold on tight," she urged, as the shadows loomed closer, their grasp pulling at her and her children, trying to intertwine them once again into the dark tapestry of despair. Then, Sarah saw it, the flicker of hope in her children's eyes. "You are not alone, we face this together," she declared, channeling all her love into a brilliant beam that shot out from her heart. The shadows recoiled as if singed by the light, their cries overlapping in a maddening cacophony. "Stay with me," she shouted, driving the energy outwards as if it were a lifeline to her children and all they had fought against. The flickering light illuminated the landscape, pushing the shadows back inch by inch, exposing them to the harsh glow. In that moment, as she pushed against the tide, she felt the truth of the hollow coursing through her, the bittersweet sting of loss, the weight of regrets. "You will not take my children," she cried, the fear coiling within even as determination surged brighter, fending off the dark tendrils. "You are powerless against love. The light expanded, bathing her children in warmth, a refuge from the cold tendrils clawing toward them. The sheer force of her love shattered the darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of the specters who once loomed, their twisted forms etched in sorrow, yearning for the release of their own burdens. "Mommy!" Lily squeaked, her voice fragile yet unwavering. "We can help them." "No, sweetie." Sarah shook her head, her heart breaking as the earnest plea tugged at her soul. "We must break free. Please." Fear and compassion warred within her, but the reality was cold, and the shadows stirred again, ready to drown them in despair. Yet, as they pressed forward, something shifted within the chaotic dance of light and dark. The shadows slowed, the figures faltering in their pursuit. "You cannot reclaim what you forsook." The looming entity shrieked, but the warmth of their bond had woven a protective barrier around them. "You think this is your domain?" Sarah shouted, her heart thundering in her chest. "You have no claim over us anymore." The glow intensified, pulsating with every heartbeat, illuminating the landscape around them. A crack in the air opened above a dazzling portal, shimmering and bright, emitting a sound like laughter. "Go! Run!" Sarah shouted, realizing this was the moment they had long fought for. With desperation propelling her forward, they ran, racing against the tide of shadows closing in behind them. They leapt into the light, gales of wind swirling around them as they were drawn upwards, breaking away from the depths of despair. The shadows writhed, losing their grip in a final desperate attempt, their anguished cries fading as they withdrew into the darkness. The world brightened, colors bursting into view, vibrant green fields dotted with wildflowers, the sweet scent of earth after rain, and birds filling the air with melodies of freedom. Sarah collapsed onto the grass, gasping for breath, their wild chase through the darkness evaporating. "Are we free?" David asked, his eyes wide and sparkling, hope blooming within their depths. "Yes," Sarah said, her heart swelling with a fierce love. "We're free for now." But as she looked back, shadows lingered at the edge of her vision, a distant reminder of what they had survived. The memory of the hollow would haunt her, a specter lurking in the periphery, but the warmth of their bond anchored her, a beacon against despair. Together, they stood, heartbeats synchronizing in the glowing bright of their new world, unaware of how the journey ahead would continue to wade through light and shadow. The whispers of the hollow faded, but Sarah now knew this was the beginning of a new chapter. As long as they faced the darkness together, they'd always find their way back to the light. And in turning to her children, she realized they had become each other's strength, light piercing through the darkest moments they might still encounter. With a smile that glimmered brighter than the sun, she held their hands tightly. "Let us go home." Now, you need to subscribe immediately to catch the next exclusive chapter of this incredible journey. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. I wanna see you flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what comes next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. Your support means the world. Show the love.